once again to our subject, traffic management and accident investigation. For this video, the discussion is a continuation of the historical background of transportation. Particularly in this video, we discuss developments in land transportation. So again, your lecturer, Darlito Bernard G. Derizo, is welcoming you back. And all of you are welcome to listen to this lecture. Before moving on to our proper discussion, let's take a look once again on the wisdom coming from the Holy Bible. The Lord says, "The steps of a man are established by the Lord. When God delights in his way, though he fall, he shall not be cast headlong. For the Lord upholds his hand. And I have been young, and now am old. Yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, or his children begging for bread. He is ever lending generously, and his children become a blessing." So sinasabi ng ating Panginoon na kung ang Diyos ay nasisiyahan sa ating mga daan, sa ating mga lakad, sa ating mga ginagawa, ay kahit tayo ay matumba, sabi niya, hindi tayo mauuntog. Kasi sabi niya, ang Lord ang tutulong sa atin. At wala pa na sino man na naging anak ng Diyos na hindi pinagpala ang kanyang mga anak. So lahat ay pinagpapala ang mga nagiging anak ng isang taong tuwid ang daanan. Nawa, as we move on with this life, may we continue to seek the guidance and wisdom coming from the Lord upang maging tama ang ating landasin sa ating buhay. So moving on to the topic about the land transportation history. The invention of the wheel is perhaps the most significant among the ancient inventions in land transportation because somehow it reduced the resistance and friction of pulling and pushing carts. So, anong nangyari after the invention of the wheel? Well, it paved way for the construction of wheeled carts and carriages. Ito yung mga mas malalaki at mas mabibilis na mga karwahe na either hinihila ng tao or ng hayop. And of course, the invention of this wheel and the wheeled carts somehow paved way for another problem in the transportation or in the land transportation. So the wheel carts and carriages could not be accommodated by narrow footpaths. So people began to construct roads. So hindi na sila kakasya sa mga maliliit na mga daanan lang ng mga naglalakad na hayop at tao. So eventually, people of long time ago started constructing roads so that they can accommodate larger and faster wheeled carts and carriages. So, paano nga ba nagsimula ang lahat? Okay, ang pagkaimbento ng gulong at yung pagdami ng mga sasakyan. According to the history, in 3000 BC, the Sumerians were considered as the first people who used wheels made of three planks held together by cross pieces with a hole in the center for the axle. In some places, a solid disc cut from a log was used also. However, contemporaneous with the Sumerians, the Chinese also claim that they were the first people to invent wheels. So there are some authors who attribute the first invention of wheel in Sumeria or in Mesopotamia, but there are also some authors who claim that wheel was first invented in China. So with the invention of the wheel, okay, in 1675 BC in Egypt, wheel vehicles became into general use, meaning that as early as those years in 1675 BC, there were already numerous numbers of wheeled vehicles that were used in the kingdom or in the empire of Egypt. And these are other examples of ancient wheeled vehicles, the Italian Coccio, the word Coccio, that's where the American or the English word coach came from. No? Yung coach, pag sinabi natin coach, ito yung kumbaga sa isang train, kung tatlo yung train na yan o tatlo yung coach niyan or sa bawat nagkadugtog-dungtong, ang tawag doon ay coach. So also the Italian Cuccio, that's where the Spanish word coche came from. Kaya we Filipinos, sinatawag din nating kotse, yung mga sedan type. So, in 1st century BC in China, during the Zhou dynasty, it was known for its fine road system. So, 2,000 years ago ay marami ng magagandang kalsada doon sa China, because there were so many carriages accordingly on the roads that it became necessary to establish speed limits and other traffic regulations. And also in China, the Great Wall of China is one of the seven wonders of the world, or one of the seven wonders of the world, as a prominent structure of the roadways in China. And during the 4th century BC, when the Romans began to build their empire, the most famous Roman Empire, okay, as they rule all over Europe, okay, and part of the Asia Minor or Minor, the Romans, okay, so that they could reach easily their territories, okay, they were considered as the pioneers of road building. So they built smooth, hard surface roads wherever they ruled from England. And they built roads that have many sections and are still used today. So as a trivia, the uh, the Roman Empire was famous for their system of roads. Okay, and accordingly, they were able to build over 53,000 miles or 85,000 kilometers of roads to connect every part of their empire. So ganun karami yung mga nagawa ng mga Romano na kalsada during their empire hanggang sa 5th century AD, when the Roman Empire began to crumble. And of course, following that year, other countries started making their own roads. So, how it is done by the Romans? So, they dig, okay, so umaabot yan ng mga 3 feet ang lalim yung kanilang hinuhukay. At ang mayroon siya mga foundations na mga large stones. And then sa ibabaw ng large stone ay mga pebbles and then paving stones ang ginagamit nila. Parang flat na mga bato yung ginagamit na nila sa ibabaw. So this is how the Romans build the roads before. Okay, so matibay kaya after thousands of years ay nagagamit pa rin yung mga ibang kalsada na ginawa ng Roman Empire. In our time, okay, when engineers are already licensed or when we have already numerous number of engineers, yan ang nangyari sa mga kalsada. Maganda, after umulan, wasak-wasak na. So moving on further, with the advent of science and technology, people began now to build machines, okay, that more or less can power their vehicles. So kasi noon ay mga hinihila na mga horses, yung mga carriage. And with the invention of the automobile, the word automobile means it can move by itself without being pulled by a man or by a human being or by an animal. That's why they call it as an automobile. So, nung pagkapasok ng automobile, tinawag din nila na mga horseless carriage ang tawag nila. Ibig sabihin, wala ng kabayo na humihila. And accordingly, in 1769, Nicolas Joseph Cognot of France built the first automobile. However, the engine was powered by steam engine. Okay? So steam engine ang ginagamit niyan. So pwedeng coal or pwedeng kerosene or whatsoever na ginagamit, yung steam ang nagpapaikot dun sa turbine. Moving on, we have William Murdoch in 1784. Okay, he made a working model of steam locomotive carriage. Okay, so this is the model of that steam locomotive carriage. So again, yung pag sinabi natin steam, yun yung nasusunog, pwedeng coal or pwedeng kerosene or pwedeng tubig at yung steam ang nagpapaikot doon sa kanyang turbine at yung turbine naman ay siya ngayon ang nagtatransfer ng mechanical power doon sa mga gulong. Okay, on 1803, Richard Trevithick was responsible for building a 10-seater London steam carriage. So tignan natin yung kanyang makina dun sa bandang likod ay steam pa rin ang nagpapaikot sa kanyang turbine. Pero ito, mas malaki na yung kanyang kinonstruct. Pwede nang magkarga ng 10 people. Okay, so he also built a steam-powered railway locomotive. So yung mga ginagamit sa railway noon ay siya rin ang tawag natin nag-introduce ng steam power. And of course, in 1815 in England, you have John L. McAdam. He constructed feather roads in England, which were known as macadamized road, which then spurred the development of land transportation. Okay? So, during his time, when they say feather road, ito yung mga parang Roman roads na inuhukay. Pero of course, today, pag sinabi mong feather road, ay iba ang connotation ngayon. So, napansin niya sa kanilang lugar na masyadong very poor yung construction ng kalsada. So, ginaya niya kung paano gumawa yung mga Romano. Recommended that roads should be raised above the adjacent ground for good drainage and covered. First with large rock and then with smaller stones, and the whole must to be bound with fine gravel or slag. So, ganun sabi niya, dapat mas mataas yung road pavement kaysa doon sa ground sa tabi niya. And of course, in 1815, nung siya'y naging mas lalong tumaas ang kanyang position as public official, he put his theories into practice. In our time, the Feather Road pertains to any road serving community to community travel or collects and feeds traffic to an expressway or turnpike. Ito yung mga toll gate na tinatawag natin. Ito yung mga papasok sa mga main thoroughfare or particularly doon sa mga expressway. Yung mga papasok doon, yung mga toll gate, yun ang tinatawag nating mga feather road. So in this image, you notice yung arrow natin, yung mga papasok na kalsada, yun ang tinatawag na feather road. And others call it as the collector road ang tawag nila dyan. Pagpalabas naman, tinatawag din yan na distributor road. Now, moving on, in 1816, Carl von Drais, he is the inventor of bicycles in Germany. Take note, wala siyang pedal, kundi pinapadyak lang niya. At malamang pag umaandar na ay magbabalance na siya. So he used his bicycle in collecting taxes from his tenants. Then moving on, in 1806, Francois Isaac de Revas, a Swiss inventor, he designed the first internal combustion engine, fueled by mixture of oxygen and hydrogen. So, gumawa siya ngayon ng internal combustion engine, pero ang nasusunog ay hydrogen at saka oxygen yung pinagsama niya. So again, yung oxygen saka hydrogen in physics, pag yan ay nasunog, very rapid yung pagkasunog at saka magpuproduce yan ng expansive gas. So yung expansive gas na yan, meron siyang force. Pag naipon yung force na yan, maging energy. At yung gas energy na yan, pwede ma-convert siya into mechanical energy. So more or less, ito yung tinatawag natin pinaka-grandfather ng ating internal combustion engine because most or if not all of the combustion engine that we have today works in the same manner na gumagamit ng gasolina, nasusunog at expansive or expanded yung gas na nakikreate ng pagsunog at yun din ang nagtutulak nung pressure ng gas na yun siya nagtutulak sa mga piston para i-transfer na mechanical energy yung napoproduce ng nasusunog na gas. Ang pagkaiba lang nung panahon ni Rivas ay mixture of oxygen ang hydrogen ang ginagamit niya. And of course, further, we have Joseph Etienne Lenoir, pronounced as Lenoir, invented a gasoline-fed engine for automobiles, now known as the internal combustion engine. So sa kanya, instead na steam ang ginagamit ay gasoline-fed na siya. So yung gasolina is an explosive. Pag yan ay nasunog, very expansive yung gas na napoproduce niyan at malakas yung pressure na napoproduce nun. But of course, earlier, ang ginagamit ni Etienne Lenoir ay yung coal ang ginagamit niya pero hindi siya steam. Okay? Parang I think parang nasusunog din siya pero eventually he used now a gasoline fed engine known as the internal combustion engine. So today in our time, these are the appearances of contemporary internal combustion engine. So this is a gasoline type. Okay, so doon sa area ng tawag natin dito ay sa banda rito ay nasusunog yung gasolina. Tapos pag nasunog yan, okay, itinutulak niya itong piston at saka itong valve dito sa taas para mayroong intake outtake ng air kasi importante yung air sa rapid combustion ng gasolina. Okay, so this is the larger one. Okay, buong makina na itong nasa right portion ng ating image. And going back earlier in 1876, Nicolaus Otto invented an effective gas motor engine. So, following now the invention of Etienne Lenoir, Nicholas Otto built the first practical four-stroke internal combustion. Ano ba yung four-stroke na tinatawag nila? Kaysa mga motor, karamihan yan mga two-stroke, yung mga motor. Karamihan sa mga kotse, mga makinan ay mga four-stroke niyan. So, tinatawag niya na Otto cycle engine. Okay? When it was completed, he built it into a motorcycle. So, the image on the right is an example of the Otto cycle engine by Nicolaus Otto. So today, ito yung distinction ng two-stroke saka four-stroke. Kaya tinawag na two-stroke yan ay outright yan na nagbubukas or umiikot kagad yan. So dalawang cycle lang. Okay, intake, tapos mag-ignite, tapos downstroke, i-compress niya, tapos ilabas niya yung usok. So ganoon lang yan. Okay, malimit yan ang ginagamit sa mga motorsiklo natin. Then you have the four-stroke engine. Okay, so intake muna, tapos i-compress niya, tapos mag-create ng power, tapos sa kanya ilalabas. So, apat na ikot. So, that's why there's a problem with those who are using motorcycle. So, gumagamit sila ng mga high octane. Pag mga high octane kasi yan, ay mas matagal masunog yan. Pag high octane yung unleaded gasoline mo, ay mas matagal masunog yan. So, mas mababa yung power ng motorsiklo. Pero kapag mga two-stroke kasi dyan, better yan sa mga lower octane. Yung mas mabilis na masunog dapat para mas mabilis yung ikot. Kaya mayroong mga misconception dun sa mga gumagamit ng high octane at saka low octane na gasolina. Akala nila yung high octane ay mabilis masunog. Akala nila yung low octane ay mahinang masunog. Actually, ang mas mahinang masunog ay yung high octane. Okay, para sa mga four-stroke engine na mga yon. And then moving back again in 1875, we have the famous Carl Benz, the maker of the Mercedes-Benz. Si Mercedes-Benz yun ang pangalan ng kanyang asawa. Okay? Accordingly, siya yung taga-test drive. Okay? He was granted with a patent for his first engine which had been designed in 1878. So that is an example of his first motor vehicle or automobile, okay, designed in 1878 using now the first engine that he designed. Then you have also 1885 Gottlieb Daimler invented the first real motorcycle. Okay? So he is known as the father of motorcycle. So yan yung motorcycle nila noon. And eventually, kay Gottlieb Daimler and Carl Benz, okay, they partnered, okay, and they came up with this type of automobile or their first automobile. Yan, so pinag-combine yung knowledge or technology ni Gottlieb Daimler sa paggawa ng motor at doon sa paggawa ng engine naman kay uh, Carl Benz to come up with that first automobile. Moving on further, in 1885, Rudolf Diesel came up with the diesel engine, okay, named after him. Well, during that time, the steam engine was the predominant power source for large industries. So sa kanya naman ay nag-imbento siya ng diesel engine na ang ginagamit ay yung diesel or yung less combustion uh, gasoline or less combustion fuel na ginamit niya. Ang idea nun ay yung diesel engine ay kailangan nito ng mas mainit upang ito ay mas masunog. Kailangan to ng higher temperature. So that's why ang ginagamit diyan ay hindi spark plug kundi meron siyang heater at kalimitan niyan gumagamit yan ng turbo machine para higupin ng turbo yung lumalabas na mainit na outtake na air para magbalik siya ng mainit na air pabalik doon sa chamber ng piston so that makatulong ito upang sunugin yung diesel engine. That's why sabi nila kapag ang diesel pag mas mainit ay mas malakas ng hatak nito. Then on the other hand, since yung mga sinaunang mga wheel ay made of solid tires or solid wood or rubber, okay, medyo tinatawag natin na yan ay matagtag siya or wala siyang suspension. So John Boy Dunlop in 1888 invented the tire and gave a tremendous impetus to the early work of automobiles and he came up with pneumatic tires. Although si Carl Benz ay kiniklaim din na nakagawa din siya ng pneumatic tire, yung gulong na mayroong hangin. But it was John Boy Dunlop ang mas binibigyan ng recognition as the inventor of the pneumatic tire. Although yung kanyang patent ay hindi recognize on the latter part of his production of tires. Well, accordingly, nag-ugat yung kanyang pag-imbento ng tire dahil sa kanyang anak na nagbibisikleta na nirekomenda ng doktor pero matagtag yung bike kaya nag-complain siya. So si John Boy Dunlop ginawa ng paraan kung paano magkakaroon ng suspension or mas malambot yung gulong pag nagbibisikleta yung kanyang anak. So let's move further in other countries, particularly in the United States of America. So accordingly, Henry Ford came up with the Model T in 1914, which accordingly was so famous. No? Napakarami, there were millions. Actually, nakabenta siya ng mga 15 millions na mga Model T doon sa Amerika. At sa picture, makita natin na meron siyang bubungan pero top-down yung kanyang bubungan. At because of the popularity of this Model T, nag-introduce si Henry Ford ng mass production of motor vehicle na tinatawag natin. So maramihang pag-produce. And eventually in 1920s, 1925, to be specific, accordingly, ay nagkaroon ng malaking problema doon sa Amerika, sa mga cities doon, ng traffic problem because they were not expecting na ganun dadami ang sasakyan in 1920s na umaabot na ng mga millions ang mga sasakyan sa Amerika. So, of course, earlier back, may nagkakaproblema na sa London. Well, nauna naman ang London or England sa Europa ng kanilang urbanization. So, earlier on, in December 1868, they were already encountering some problems as to the controlling of traffic. Okay, so J.P. Knight installed the first traffic light outside the British Houses of Parliament in London. It looks like the railway signals of that time with semaphore arms and red and green gas lamps for night use. So, yung gas lamp ang tawag namin, I don't know how could I explain to you, no? Yung parang nung panahon kasi namin may mga parang yung Petromax like that, no? Gas lamp ang mga yon. So, pero sa kanya, colored red and green lamang. So, the gas lantern was turned with a lever at its base so that the appropriate light face traffic. So, it was manually operated. And okay, so still in America, in around 1912, Lester Wire, a policeman, invented the first red-green electric traffic light. So if sa Europa, gumagamit si J.P. Knight ng gas lamp or gas lantern, sa Amerika naman ay meron ng electric lamp. So instead of the gas lamp ay gumamit na ng electric traffic lights. Well again, as I've mentioned earlier, during those times doon sa America, early 1900s, the influx or the number of motorized vehicles in their highways, particularly in the urban areas, was rapidly growing. So there was a necessity for traffic enforcers, for traffic officers, for police officers to at least help in discovering technologies that will help them direct and control traffic. And moving on further, in 1914, the American Traffic Signal Company installed a traffic signal system on the corner of East 105th Street and Euclid Avenue in Cleveland with two colors, red and green, and a buzzer. So, ang kaibahan lang naman yan, mayroong buzzer. Okay, it was designed by James Hoggs. Okay, so anong gamit ng buzzer? Well, yan yung magbibigay ng warning na mag-change na yung kulay. So, kumbaga, in our time, that is now the amber or the yellow light. And another retired police officer by the name of William Potts, considered as the Mr. Traffic Light, or yeah, he's called as the Mr. Traffic Light. He created the first four-way, three-color traffic light in Detroit, Michigan. So, ito na yung four-way. Ibig sabihin ay yung intersection, apat na way yun, no? Kabilaan, apat. Okay? So, na-introduce na yung three-color traffic light, yung red, green, at saka yung yellow. That's why he's called the Mr. Traffic Light. Now, moving on further, in 1952, after the World War, well, marami na namang lumabas na mga invention tungkol sa, tawag natin tungkol sa mga engine. So we have Felix Wankel, a German. He came up with the rotary engine. Yung mga older engine ng mga motorsiklo, ang ginagamit ay yung Wankel engine or yung rotary engine. Of course, itong engine na ito ay wala siyang piston. Ang pinaka-piston niya yung triangle sa gitna. Na kapag nasunog yung gasolina diyan ay itutulak niya, iikot ngayon. Yun ang pinaka-piston niya. Kaya yan ang kaibahan ng rotary engine. Kaya malimit yan, ginagamit yan sa mga generators, ginagamit yan sa mga motorcycles, and of course, kahit ang Mercedes-Benz saka Mazda, meron din silang mga motor vehicles, mga sedan type na gumagamit ng rotary engine made by Felix Wankel of Germany. That was in 1952. And further on, moving forward, in 2005, the Toyota company developed the hydrogen-powered fuel cell hybrid vehicle. So hydrogen-powered naman siya. Okay, na mayroon siyang baterya. So this is actually the first electric motor vehicle. And today, with the adverse effect of the constant burning of carbon sa ating air, sa ating environment, ay there is now what you call a demand for less or lesser air pollution, okay, or lesser carbon burning coming from a motorized vehicle. Kaya marami na ngayon ang mga electric motor vehicles and electric scooters and electronic motorcycles. So we have seen many inventions all over the world, high-tech. What about in the Philippines? Yan, para mas marami yung makakarga, yung mga motorsiklo sa Pilipinas, ginaya nila yung mga ginagawa sa Malaysia, no, at saka Indonesia, yung tinatawag na Skylab na motorsiklo. Well, tinawag na Skylab yan, base yan dun sa appearance ng Sky Laboratory na nahulog noong 1980s. Yung pumalit ng NASA Space Station. So yan kaya tinatawag siyang Skylab kasi para siyang cross. So further sa Pilipinas, ginawa nilang multi-purpose yung ating kuliglig na supposedly ginagamit lang yan for plowing, no? Para sa pag-araro lamang yan. So ang mga Filipino ginawa nilang pang-passenger na yung ating mga kuliglig. Well, later on, baka mayroong mga legislators natin na i-categorize na nila yan na motor vehicle, baka ipapa-register na rin yan later on. Okay, so what else? Hindi lamang sa mga sasakyan ang mga tinatawag nating na-modernize, even yung ating mga highways ay na-modernize. Again, the purpose is that the existing roads could no longer accommodate the volume of traffic. That's why there is a necessity to construct more traffic facilities so that ma-attain yung purpose of traveling or transportation or transporting goods and people in the shortest possible of time. And in Manila, we have the overhead highways or the skyway. Of course, that is also predominant in other countries, yung paggawa ng skyways para mas maka-accommodate ng mas maraming volume ng traffic. And again, aside from the modernization of motor vehicles for land transportation as well as the traffic facilities, there are now the introduction of sophisticated transport systems. Yung mga paggamit ng mga sky railways, mga paggamit ng mga cable cars like that, and paggamit ng mga bullet train, paghukay ng mga tunnels. Again, the purpose is so that people would be able to be transported and goods can be transported in the fastest possible of time. And aside from the sophistication of transportation, we have also the sophistication of transportation guides, yung mga ginagamit natin ng mga GPS. Today, ang pinaka maraming gumagamit ay yung Waze Android application. Anong gamit nito? Anong tulong nito doon sa traffic flow natin? Well, this will give an idea on the motorist kung saan siya dadaan. So, maiwasan niya yung mga miscalculation, maiwasan niya yung mga wrong turns, maiwasan yon because the GPS or this Waze application will guide the driver or the user, no? Para alam niya kung saan yung matraffic na area at saan siya, ilang kilometro pa, kung kailan siya kakaliwa or kakanan. So at least somehow, itong mga GPS na ito, yung mga Waze Android app na ito, ay nakakatulong in in arriving sa destination ng mas madali at mas safe na kaparaanan. Then today, we have seen in the newspaper or in the TV or in YouTube or whatever social media, yung invention ng mga flying cars or mga flying taxis na tinatawag natin. So they are thinking that within 5 years ay dadami na itong mga flying cars na ito. Again, ang purpose na naman yan ay para hindi ka matrap doon sa traffic congestion at mas mabilis ka na makarating ulit sa iyong patutunguhan. Now, despite of the various innovations and inventions and modernizations, despite of all the sophistications of the traffic facilities, napakarami ng mabibilis na sasakyan, mga motorsiklo, napakaluwang ng mga kalsada, but again, traffic problems persistently exist. So, nandun pa rin yung ating mga traffic problem in spite sa mga modernization and sophistication ng ating mga traffic facilities. So from the ancient times to the 21st century, humans sought to make their transport facilities more efficient and have always endeavored to move people and property with the least expenditure of time, effort, and money. However, ay hindi natin maiwasan na meron pa rin mga traffic problems na kinakailangang pansinin ng ating authority. So, with that, in summary, man made all those inventions because he wanted his transportation and traveling more efficient, meaning they can move or they will travel safer, faster, and more comfortable. Okay, so yun ang pinaka-focus ng traffic management which will be discussed in the next video. Sasagutin niya or i-handle niya yung mga existing traffic problems in spite of all the modernizations that we have in the highways. So with that, thank you very much for listening and watching. If you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Should you have any problem, feel free to type your comments or your questions in the comment section. Once again, thank you very much and God bless you all.